Right, so it is day 60 of my New Year's tree planting resolution thing, which means we've entered our third month of this, and so far, so good. So let's get on with it. Right, so for today's planting, we're heading back to the Capox one day to be under canopy. So this area is one I'm going to keep coming back to, because what I want to do is basically build up a level of plants that when the ipe, the little saplings that are all around, drop all their leaves in the dry season, we have enough plants with their marker dracaenas of varying heights to slow the movement of wind and mean all these tropical trees that are going into this section, the ones that usually would live in areas of more rainfall than we get in Zambia, will not suffer too much from that drying out as we get the winter winds coming through and then the summer heat before the rains come back. And so today's one is three little Phoenix reclinata, which one day with themselves will be a fairly effective windbreak. So they're going somewhat towards the windward edge of this area. I mean, one of them is going quite close to the banana, so between the Dracaena studinarii on the other side and this one on the leeward side of the banana should be sheltered from sun and wind pretty well while it's still young and tender. But effectively these will one day form a windbreak, but they're going in with three very tall Dracaena to counter the very short Dracaenas I put in with the lychees. So as well as that immediate shelter the lychees have, they'll have a little bit of sort of wind slowing from these larger ones and from the plants that will go in the future. I'm also putting the very standard Aloe Cameroni in with those, and some Kalanchoe pinnata, which is the cathedral bells, which is not the sort of universal standard, but because these palms are still very small and because all of them are ones that have come up under mango trees in quite dense shade, because mangoes are quite dark underneath them usually, I thought it would be a good idea to give them something that will quite quickly fill out and give them quite a lot of immediate shade, so while they're still small, while they're still tender, and while they're still filling out their head, because like a lot of palms, most of the Phoenix tend to create their sort of full head size before they start heading up. You can sort of force it with Phoenix reclinata a little bit, and I probably will. By pruning off some of the lower leaves, you can encourage them to become trees sort of upwardly mobile before they usually would. But they're still not going to do that instantly, so it's good to have a little bit of sort of shelter and enclosure around them to keep them sheltered in that early stage while they're still small, while they're still settling in. Okay, so because this is a fairly straightforward planting, I thought it might be a fun time to talk about why do I plant so many palms. And part of it is obviously palms are nice to look at, but part of it is most fruit trees I will plant, and there are exceptions to this. So for example, I will probably be planting some more custard apples, which are relative to the soursop later in the year, and as far as I know those are less related to everything else and they are incredibly toxic, so they're a very good one for this. But diversity is key, and that is not just in terms of species, but at the higher levels of classification. If you want to reduce the disease burden, in most settings, having a wider range of species in the same environment doesn't increase diseases, it reduces them, because the pathogens that spread from one plant to another, they're going to spread most readily between closely related species, and it's much more difficult for effectively a zoonotic type infection to happen between completely unrelated plants. Very much as though you're more likely to get a disease from hugging a relative than a dog. You know, a guava tree is much more likely to get a disease from another myrtle than it is from, say for example, a dracaena or a palm tree. And because palms, along with the dracaenas actually, are some of the very few monocot trees, and because date palms are one that you can harvest jaggery from, and so even though this isn't as good as the commercial date palm, which is Phoenix dactylifera, I do hope that eventually, once they're big enough, I'll be able to start harvesting that way. They're a useful tree, but they're also so very unrelated. And there are a few sort of very generalist herbivores that can damage both, but for the most part, you're not going to get diseases specifically spreading between a palm tree and a lychee tree, or a palm tree and a jackfruit tree. And so, because they are so far away, generally speaking, from the rest of the trees I'm planting, they are a very good one to sort of push back that diversity as much as possible. So with that little bit of waffle out of the way, that should be everything for today. Thank you very much for watching, and tune in again tomorrow when I think I have something new to plant. I have to work out exactly what it is. It's a volunteer, but we will see if it's one I want to be putting back in the ground.